Today we're going to learn how to do the secret Belgian binding. The fun thing about this book is that the front cover flips all the way back so that the book lays flat, and each of the pages lays flat as well. The first thing that we're going to do is prepare our covers. I'm using Davy board and I'm using a see-through ruler. It's one of my favorite tools for bookbinding. I'm actually measuring twice, but I don't have to with the see-through ruler. I could just line it up with the grid that's on the ruler itself. I'm measuring off a 1-inch strip on the spine, which is where we're going to put the station holes for our sewing. I'm going to measure off 1-inch marks, which are where the holes are going to go, starting from the left. And when I get all the way to the bottom, I'm going to end up with about 3/4 of an inch. And that's fine because usually on a book, you want to have a little bit more on the bottom so that it indicates that it's the bottom of the book. So I'm labeling it. That's the bottom, and the left side is going to be the top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to punch holes in all those little station marks. I used a drill press to make the holes for my book, but you don't have to. You could use an awl or some sort of a sharp tool, a nail of some sort, but the drill press certainly makes it a lot easier. Once you've drilled all your holes, you're going to sand down any of the raised surfaces that happen from the drill going in and out of the board. Then you're going to fold your folios. A folio is really just a sheet of paper folded in half. When put together, they become a signature. After you've got all of your folios together, you're going to put them together, and you'll need 5 or 6 folios for each signature. And you're going to need 4 or 5 signatures for your book. Now you're going to make your punch template. Take 1 extra folio, take the folded edge, and line it up along the line where your holes are drilled. Be sure to leave 1/4 of an inch on the left and the right side, and then mark off onto the paper where each of the holes meets the folio. This is going to show you where you're going to punch your holes for your signatures. Now you want to indicate the top and the bottom of the signature. So in this case, the left side is the top and the right side is the bottom. The bottom has a little bit more space than the top does. And then you want to punch your holes. Now you're going to insert that punch template inside each one of the signatures. There's a couple of ways that we can punch the holes. You can use a jig just like the one that I've made just out of some scraps of Davy board. Or you can take a piece of foam, soft foam, and you can use that to punch into by laying your paper flat on top of it. And then you would just punch with your awl straight down into each of the holes that you've measured out. If you're going to use the jig, you would keep that same template inside, and instead of pushing straight down, you would nestle the signature into the little notch of the jig and then push at about a 45-degree angle. So that's what I'm going to do for each of my signatures. I'm just going to take the signature, put the template inside, and start punching the holes. After I have punched the holes in the entire signature, what I'm going to do is make sure that I indicate which is the top and which is the bottom of the signature, so that once I put them aside, if I get them mixed up somehow, I know which one goes up and which goes down. I put a little T at the top just to make sure that I know. Now put your signatures aside and you're going to prepare your covers. I'm using PVA to attach the decorative paper that I've selected for the front and the back of my book. I always start in the middle with the glue and then work my way out. The glue, for some reason, seems to dry near the edges more than it does in the middle. So work from your middle out and make sure that it's even. Not too much glue, otherwise it's going to spread out all over the place. Place your Davy board down onto the back of your decorative paper, and then use your bone folder to smooth out any bubbles that there might be. It's really important to know which side of your book board you're going to put your cover paper on. Remember, the holes are on the left-hand side of your front cover, and there should be a little bit more space between the bottom hole and the bottom of your book. I always keep a damp paper towel or a baby wipe nearby in case I've gotten some glue on my work surface. Once you've covered your front cover, you want to do your back cover, but you want to make sure that you put the glue on the correct side of the book board. On the back cover, the holes should be on the right-hand side, not the left-hand side. Put that glue on and make sure you smooth out any bubbles. And once you've done the back cover, you need to do your spine piece. Now you want to trim off all that excess paper. I found these brass spacers at Michael's in the hobby section, and that one I think is about 3/4 of an inch, and I use that to trim a nice even border, and then I can wrap the rest of the paper around the board. Before you wrap your edges around, in order to have a nice neat corner, what you have to do is cut about a 45-degree angle, leaving at least a board's thickness between where you cut and the corner of your board. Don't cut right up against the board, otherwise you're going to have a bare edge that's going to show when you wrap it around. So make sure you leave that extra space. I had to switch to some better scissors because my scissors were terrible. Once you've trimmed those corner pieces off of all of your pieces, then you're going to go ahead and you're going to glue it. So I have some scrap paper that I use to glue on. You don't want a lot of glue, otherwise it's going to squish out. Put a nice even coat, and then you're going to use your bone folder to kind of bring that paper up and over, and you're going to burnish it down onto your book board so that it's nice and flat. I always glue opposite sides, so I flip it around, moving my book board away from my previously glued area. Put a nice even coat down and bring it up and over. So you want to glue the top and the bottom now, but it's important that you do it the right way. Put your glue on the flap just like you did the other ones, except this time, before you turn the flap over, it's really important that you pinch in those corner pieces. If you don't pinch them in, you get kind of what I call rabbit ears. So you just kind of pinch in the left and the right side just a little bit. And then once you do that, you can bring that flap over and you'll get a nice neat corner. And then you'll do the same thing on the other side. So you're going to bring your paper that you've been gluing on over. That way you just don't get any glue on the front of your book. Put another strip of glue on that flap. Kind of get it under those little flaps that are there too. And then pinch in those corners with your pointer fingers or your thumbs, whatever works. And then just take that bone folder and bring that flap over and press it down firmly. A lot of bookbinders like to soften the corners a little bit by using their bone folder, just to make those corners just a little less pointy. And now you get to do the same thing on the other side. And then one last time, just on your little spine piece. I do the top pieces first on this. And now your covers are ready for their face papers. But before you do that, you kind of want to make sure you know where those holes are, because it's a little harder to find once the cover and the face papers are on. So just go ahead and repunch those holes so you know where they go. And now put your face papers on. So your face papers are going to be slightly smaller than the front and the back cover of your book. Our front and back covers are 9.5 by 6.25. So we're going to make our face papers 9.25 by 6. Get the glue nice and even on it, and then press it down. Use your bone folder to make sure that it's pressed down firmly to the cover. And if you get a little glue on it, not a big deal. Just have that baby wipe or the paper towel nearby so you can clean off the book cover as well as your bone folder. And then do the same thing on the other side. And the face papers, once you put them down on the inside of your book, you'll have about 1/4 of an inch to 1/8 of an inch of space that goes all the way around. And then once your face papers are on, then find those holes again and just punch them again with the awl. And now it's time to sew. You're going to line up your boards for sewing, remembering that the bottom of your book cover has a little bit more space between that bottom hole and the bottom edge of your book. Keep about 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch in between your front cover, the spine, and the back cover. Use a little bit of painter's tape just to hold the covers in place. You want to have enough thread to sew your entire book. So you have 8 stations. I would do at least 8 heights of your book. I would do probably 10 just to be safe. And then once you have your thread all measured out, you want to use one of your curved needles if you've got one. You can always use a straight needle if you don't have a curved one. And in order to get the linen cord through that needle, sometimes it's easier if you take your bone folder and kind of flatten down that edge, and then it makes it easier to try to get it through the eye of the needle. Once you have your needle threaded, you want to pull your tail through there, and I would pull it through a decent amount, at least for the beginning, because it'll help you try and keep your thread from knotting too much when you're doing your stitching. Now you're going to take your needle and you're going to insert it into the first station on the top of the front cover of your book. And you're going to sew from the inside to the outside. Pull it through and leave a little bit of a tail. Then you're going to take your needle and put it right in between the front cover and the spine, that little space that's there. And then pretty much what you're doing now is weaving. And you're going to go over that spine and insert it through to the front cover of your book again, through that space in between the right side of the spine and the back cover. And then pull your thread through. It gets a little awkward right now when you've got a lot of thread, but it starts to get better as you go along. Then you're going to insert your needle into the top station of your back cover and pull it all the way through. And then you're going to weave it back through the space in between the back cover and the spine, and then around to the space in between the spine and the front cover. And then you're going to tie it off. You're just going to do a little square knot. And then once you've done that, you're going to take your needle and you're going to put it right back through that first station on the top of your front cover. And here's where I almost screw up and put it in the wrong place. I don't want to go there. I want to go into the top station, and then weave back and forth just like I did before. So I pull it through to the front cover, back in between that space, around the spine, in between the space between the spine and the back cover. And then I'm going to come right back through the first station on the top of the back cover of the book. Once you pull all that thread through, you're going to start to see the sewing pattern show up. So you're going to see that there's going to be a single thread on the outside of the spine, and then a double thread on the inside of the spine. Then you're going to go down to the second station on the back cover of the book, bring it down, and then you're going to start to weave in and out. What's going to end up happening as you're doing this is it's almost looks like a snake stitch that goes all the way around. So you're coming down the right side, then you're going across, then you'll come down the left side, then you go across, and you come down the right side, and you'll see the sewing pattern show up. But it's pretty much just weaving back and forth. When you're getting close to the bottom and you can tell that the spine and the covers are really stable, you can take off that bottom piece of tape, and then it makes the weaving a lot faster and easier because you can just kind of slip it through those spine areas easily, and then just thread it through the holes. Once you get down to your last station, you're going to tie yourself a square knot just to tie the thread off. So bring it through once, and then bring it through a second time, and then cut the excess thread off. And then you've completed the sewing of the cover of your book. And then you can take the tape off the top edge too. And now you can see how the S pattern shows up. If it looks like that, you've done it right. Now you're going to sew your signatures in place. I have 5 signatures for my book. You can either choose to do 4 or 5. I wouldn't do more than 5 though. Measure out your thread. So you want to go at least 5 times the height of your book, because that's how many signatures you have. I would probably do 7 just to make sure that I had enough thread to make it through the whole thing. Same thing, thread your needle by flattening out the edge of your cord, and that way it's a lot easier to get it through the eye of the needle. And then once you've got your thread through the needle, you're going to start to sew your signatures in. So now this is where it's really important to remember which are the tops of your signatures. So always look for that T and then line that up. Make sure that the holes line up properly. You're going to go through the inside of the first signature and bring that thread all the way through, leaving a little bit of a tail so that you'll have enough to tie the thread off. Then bring your needle through the double thread that surrounds that spine. Bring it all the way through, and then you're going to go right back in to that same station, the same hole that the thread came out of at the top of your signature, and bring it right back through to the inside. Sometimes when you're trying to get the needle through, it's hard because the pages don't line up exactly right away when you're first doing it. You could always use an awl to make the hole a little bit bigger, and it's easier to get the needle through that way. Pull the thread all the way through, and then just tie a little knot there just to anchor the whole thing. Once you get that tied off, then you're going to take your needle down to the next station inside your signature, going from the inside to the outside, and pull it all the way through. Then go and wrap it around the thread that goes across the spine, and then right back into that same hole that the thread came out of. And then you're going to keep doing that all the way down till you get to the last station. When you get to the last station, you always kind of want to go back into that hole like you've done before, but you're not going to this time. You're going to get your next signature and you're going to bring that over, and instead of going through the same hole that the thread came out of, you're going to go into your next signature in the bottom station. And again, if it's hard to get the needle through, line up your signature as well. Just take your awl, kind of line it up, and then stick the needle through. It's a little easier that way sometimes. And then you're going to go up to the next hole inside your signature. Bring the needle through to the outside of the signature, and then go around the loop that's in the spine. Pull the thread all the way through, and then you're going to continue and repeat that same pattern all the way up to the top. And then don't put it back in. After you've looped it through, you want to make sure that you don't put it back into that same hole like you've done in the past. Nope, don't do it, don't do it. Get your next signature. I swear I do that every time. And so now you're going in from the outside of your next signature into the top station. And repeat that sewing pattern all the way down to the bottom. We're almost done. We're down to that last station. You're going to pull your thread through, and you're going to tie off your thread just by looping the needle through the last stitch that you did and tying it off. And then one more knot just for good measure. And then cut off the excess. Leave yourself just a little bit of a tail. And there you have your secret Belgian binding.